Hello, welcome to another video on this channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the severe weather threat that is coming up early this week, mainly in the Monday to Tuesday timeframe. So I've been watching this storm system that's going to be coming up over the past few days, and looking at the latest data, it looks like the severe weather threat is going to be at the greatest from Monday late afternoon and into the overnight hours, and then into early Tuesday morning. And so this video is mostly going to be talking about the severe weather threat for Monday. And so this video is going to go through the severe weather outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. I'm going to talk about the current observations and see where we stand as of right now, and to give us kind of a broad general overview of what to expect. And then we're going to look into some model data and see what kind of threats we're going to be looking at and where they might occur. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel, and we're going to get started. So we're starting off today with the Storm Prediction Center and their severe weather outlooks for the next couple of days. So we're going to start with the day one outlook, and they are forecasting a marginal risk of severe weather that is valid through about 6 a.m. Monday morning. So this severe weather threat is mostly for a large hail threat, with a few of the storms that develop late this afternoon across Oklahoma. And so clouds and cool surface temperatures are kind of limiting the instability and better low-level moisture coming up from the Gulf. So not expecting a big severe weather threat this evening across the southern plains. But then as we go into Monday, the severe weather threat is going to rapidly increase as we go through the afternoon and evening hours on Monday. So the Storm Prediction Center has outlined an enhanced risk of severe weather from the central Texas and Louisiana border all the way east into Jackson and Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So this is mostly northern and central Louisiana, including places like Alexandria and Monroe, Louisiana, and for the southern half of Mississippi, including places like Jackson and Hattiesburg. And surrounding this enhanced risk, we have a level 2 out of 5 slight risk and the marginal risks that surround the enhanced zone. So that stretches up into most of the state of Arkansas and southwest Tennessee and western half of Alabama, where you see that marginal risk. And so this is going to be an all hazards threat for Monday, that includes the threat for tornadoes, damaging winds, and large hail. So let's look at the probabilistic outlooks for this. So the first one is going to be for tornadoes, and so this is where they have a 10% hatched area outlooked, where that enhanced risk is outlined. And so that just means that's where the greatest tornado threat is going to be, and that this hatched area where you see the black dashed lines, that's where we could see a strong tornado, a significant tornado or two that is EF2 or greater, with the storms that track through Louisiana and Mississippi on Monday evening. And so then you have, surrounding that 10% hatched zone, you have your slight and marginal tornado probabilities extending up into much of the state of Arkansas, southwest Tennessee, and western half of Alabama into the overnight hours on Monday. So then you also have your damaging wind threat. Your 30% zone is where that enhanced risk is outlooked, mainly over southern Mississippi, and then also a threat for large hail early on. Early on during the event. But by the time we get into the evening and overnight hours, this is mostly going to be a damaging wind and tornado threat. And so then we're going to go into the day 3 outlook. So this is for Tuesday. This is valid from starting at 6 a.m. Tuesday morning. And so storms are going to be tracking ahead of the cold front, probably in a squall line. And so you have a marginal level 1 out of 5 threat for severe weather from basically over the southern half of Alabama and northwest Florida. Damaging winds and maybe a brief tornado would be the primary hazards for storms Tuesday morning. So now we can go to our satellite imagery and see what our storm system looks like. So this is the water vapor imagery from Sunday afternoon. And you see this big swirl that is over the western half of the country. And so this is our storm system that is going to be causing this severe weather threat for early this week. And so we can look at the radar currently. And so we just have some scattered showers and a few isolated thunderstorms ongoing across the central United States. And then pretty soon we could see a few additional storms out in Oklahoma, and some of those could carry a large hail threat. But otherwise, most storms tonight will generally not be severe. Now we're going to go to our upper air charts and observe data and see how things stand as of right now. So this is our 300 millibar map, and if you've watched other videos on this channel before, you know that we are going to be looking for the jet stream. So the jet stream is currently located over the western interior of the United States and stretching down into the southern plains. So we can go look at 500 millibars for our trough and ridge pattern. And we have this big long wave trough that is situated over the western half of the United States. And so this is what you kind of saw on that satellite imagery. This is where you see that big swirl in the atmosphere. And you can actually kind of see your upper level divergence a little bit better at 500 millibars. So over the Texas Panhandle and up into Oklahoma, you have winds out of the southwest. And then over South Texas and into Louisiana, you have winds that are more out of the west. So we have some pretty good diffluence aloft. And so that's kind of where our synoptic scale forcing is going to be coming from for the storm system. So there's going to be a pretty strong lifting mechanism for storms as we go through Monday. So now we're going to go down to 850 millibars, and we're going to be looking for our low-level mass response and the low-level jet. So we have, as a result from that 500 millibar trough, we have kind of this broad cyclonic flow over the central United States. And then to the east of that, you have our southerly low-level jet that is from about central Texas up into the central plains. And it's generally about 30 knots or so kind of a moderately strength, kind of a medium strength low-level jet. So that is responsible for bringing up the maritime tropical air mass from the Gulf of Mexico. And so it's responsible for that warm air advection, and it increases the low-level wind shear for potential for tornadoes. And then, so let's look at the surface chart for this evening. And we have our surface low that is centered over the Texas Panhandle. And then you have our cold front that is stretching down into the western Texas and into New Mexico. Then you also have this remnant frontal boundary from this weekend as the cold front tracked through the southeastern states this weekend. And it's kind of have this remnant frontal boundary that is draped across the Gulf of Mexico. And so we have our high pressure that is centered, they kind of have a high pressure center over the Carolinas and the mid-Atlantic region. And that is reinforcing this dry continental air mass over the southeastern states. And that is entrenched a little bit into the northern Gulf of Mexico. So that has kind of limited the northward return of moisture at least for today's threat of severe weather. We're going to take a look at the moisture and see where that is currently located. Next, so let's take a look at a closer up view of our surface. So this is valid as of 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Our surface low is kind of centered over the Texas Panhandle and western Texas. And so our cold front is draped across the Texas Panhandle and stretching back into New Mexico. And so if we look at our dew points here across the Gulf of Mexico, we have our 60-degree dew points shunted pretty far into the central Gulf of Mexico. So winds are starting to flip back around to the south across the Gulf, helping to start to bring up some of that moisture. But it's not really going to get up into Oklahoma quite in time for severe weather threat. So our 60-degree dew points are kind of located in central Texas, stretching almost up into the Red River, and then a little bit south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then kind of just remaining over the central Texas vicinity. This remnant frontal boundary that was kind of draped across the Gulf of Mexico, this is kind of where that's set up right now. And so this is gradually going to be lifting back to the northeast as a warm front as we go through the night tonight. And so that's going to help bring up those 50s and 60s dew points up into the lower Mississippi Valley, where the main severe weather threat is expected to materialize on Monday. So that's where we stand right now as far as the observations go. We can look at some observed soundings from Sunday morning. So this is a sounding from Dallas-Fort Worth. This is from 6 a.m. this morning. And so you can kind of see where we have our cool surface temperatures and dew points that are in the 50s on the surface here. That's what these numbers here represent. We also had a lot of cloud cover for today, and that's lasted through a good portion of the day. So we haven't really been able to destabilize much across the southern plains this afternoon. So that's kind of limited the severe weather threat for Sunday. But that's going to change as we go through the day on Monday. And so we can look down to the south here, take a couple more soundings here. This is from Corpus Christi, which shows surface temperatures a lot warmer and a lot higher dew points. So the moisture is a lot better, and we're a little bit deeper into the warm sector. So a pretty nice moist layer extending up to about 850 millibars, where those temperature and dew point lines are closer together. That's where the air is more saturated, and so storms are going to be more favored in areas with a deeper moist layer. And so you look at another sounding here at Brownsville and see generally the same thing. So that's what the observed data looks like as of Sunday afternoon. So now we're going to take a look at some of the model data and see what we can expect. So this is the afternoon run of the NAM, or the North American Mesoscale model. And we're going to start at 250 millibars, and we're looking at the jet stream. So this is forecasted for 6 a.m. Monday morning. And so the jet stream is located over central Texas and into, well, let me put that in a different color so you can see a little bit better. So the upper level jet stream is located over central Texas and into the deep south early Monday morning. And then as we go, it's pretty much going to stay mostly in place for much of the day on Monday. It's not going to move a whole lot. And so as we go through the overnight hours into Monday and then go to the morning hours on Tuesday morning, the jet stream is still pretty much over central Texas up into the mid-south and Ohio valleys. And so this is going to provide that upper air support, or the forcing mechanisms for storms as we go through the day on Monday. So now we're going to go down to 500 millibars, see how our trough evolves over the day on Monday. So our trough is still situated over the western part of the country Monday morning, but as we go through the evening on Monday, our trough axis is situated from about western Missouri down into northern and central Texas, taking on somewhat of a positive tilt. And so I talked about it a little bit in my earlier videos, but the positive tilt refers to the trough axis that is oriented from northeast to southwest. And so you tend to not get as much diffluence aloft with a positively tilted trough. But even so, even if you have as long as you have a strong trough in place, you still will get plenty of upper level divergence. So we have your wind vectors over northern Texas up into the lower Mississippi Valley coming out of the southwest. And then your winds at 500 millibars are coming more out of the west-southwest here across the deep south. So that's going to create plenty of upper level divergence across the lower Mississippi Valley. And so we're going to still have plenty of upper air support for severe weather on the day on Monday. So now we're going to go down to 850 millibars, and we're looking for the low-level jet. And so our low-level jet early on Monday is generally over the Arctic region of about 30 to 40 knots or so. And so that's going to maintain itself and even intensify as we go through the evening hours on Monday. So really after around 6 p.m. Monday, after dark, the low-level jet really begins to ramp up across Louisiana, Mississippi, and eventually into Alabama as we go through the overnight hours on Monday. So that low-level jet is really going to help crank up that warm air advection, bringing up that maritime tropical air mass from the Gulf of Mexico, and then also rapidly increase the low-level wind shear, and the environment then becomes much more favorable for tornadoes. And so now let's take a look at the surface pattern here across the southern United States and see how that progresses as we go through the day on Monday. So I'm going to zoom in here, get a closer up view across the southern United States. And so our surface low is located over kind of over the Red River in Oklahoma and Texas, with your cold front that is extending down through West Texas and into New Mexico. And our warm front is kind of situated over eastern Texas and down into Louisiana and Louisiana, Mississippi Gulf Coast. And that's going to be lifting to the northeast as we go through the day. So let's go through the day here on Monday. And so by late afternoon, our surface low is tracked into the Arklatex region, where Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas meet together. And so your cold front is then pushing off to the east over Texas, and our warm front is now lifted northeast up into far southern Arkansas, northeast Louisiana, and into southern Mississippi. And so our warm sector is going to be generally from about eastern Texas through Louisiana, getting into southwest Mississippi by late Monday afternoon. And so this is a pretty wide warm sector that we're going to be working with on Monday. So there's going to be plenty of room for any potential discrete supercells that develop during the day on Monday in the open warm sector. So then the surface pattern progresses as we go through the evening on Monday. And then your surface low tracks up through southeastern Arkansas into kind of the mid-south region as we go through the overnight hours into Tuesday morning. So then by Tuesday, or early Tuesday morning, just after sunrise, our cold front is surging through the lower Mississippi Valley, and it's kind of stretching from Kentucky and Tennessee, approaching the Mississippi-Alabama border, and then going down into almost down into New Orleans by Monday morning. So storms are going to be ongoing ahead of this cold front in a squall line as they go through Mississippi and Alabama. And those could have a continued threat of damaging winds and potentially a few tornadoes. So now let's go through some forecast soundings from this model and see what kind of hazards we can expect. So we're going to start off here at 21Z Monday in northeast Louisiana, kind of south of that warm front. So this is the forecast sounding from the NAM. And we have surface temperatures on the NAM about 81 with a dew point of 67. So pretty warm and unstable environment. And so this is our instability parameters over here in this column. And so mixed layer CAPE is at around 1,300 joules per kilogram. So pretty unstable environment that we have. Wind shear is still pretty weak. The low level jet has not quite yet ramped up. You don't really have that strong curvature in the hodograph. And so not exactly favorable for tornadic supercells just yet, but you do have strong deep layer wind shear with our wind shear value of about 60 knots or so. So pretty strong for supercells. So mainly with a large hail and potentially a damaging wind threat for early on in the event, so kind of late afternoon. But after that low level jet ramps up, we're going to see a ramp up in the tornado threat. So this is around 6 p.m. Monday evening. So we're going to look at a sounding over in southwest Mississippi, just east of Natchez, Mississippi. So this is in the far southwestern corner of the state. And so this is right as the low-level jet begins to ramp up. So you can see the difference in the difference that the low-level jet is making in our hodograph. We have a lot more curvature in that hodograph, and also becoming a little bit more elongated. Deep layer shear now at around 70 knots or so. So that's very strong wind shear, very favorable for supercells, and with good clockwise curvature in that hodograph. And you see that varying wind profile, the wind direction changing from east to west as you go up in altitude. So that is pretty favorable for tornadic supercells. And so the wind profile is looking pretty good for tornadoes. So the main question as we go after dark is, do we keep the instability that has been building up through the day? And so on the sounding, you have mixed layer CAPE at around 700 joules per kilogram, which is a little bit on the marginal side. But also the NAM tends to be a little bit too cool with surface temperatures, especially in these warm air advection regimes. So that surface temperature could be a little bit underdone. So if our surface temperature is a couple degrees warmer, that'll keep the air a little bit more unstable. And so the tornado threat could be actually a little bit higher than what you'd be seeing here. So that is something to keep in mind. And then also with any discrete storms that would interact with the warm front, that would have an increased tornado potential, and where we could actually see a couple of significant tornadoes. And it's sort of conditional. Had to see how things evolve. So then as we go through the overnight hours on Tuesday, overnight hours on Monday, storms are going to congeal into a squall line, and so damaging winds will then become the primary hazard. But we can't quite rule out a couple of tornadoes embedded in the squall line due to the rapid increase in our low-level wind shear. So this is going to be a sounding that comes from southwest Alabama Tuesday morning. And so this shows very strong low-level wind shear. You can see how that low-level jet really begins to ramp up and really increase that curvature in the photograph. So the main storm mode here is going to be a squall line. So we're just going to be seeing really damaging winds and maybe an embedded tornado threat inside that squall line where you have the warm sector located. So that's going to be over the southern half of Mississippi and the southern half of Alabama. So as storms track through the day, through the overnight hours on Monday and through the day on Tuesday, that's just where the severe weather threat is going to be located. Mostly to the north of that, over the Tennessee Valley and Ohio Valleys, it's just mostly going to be a locally heavy rainfall. That's all that we're going to see. So on the flip side of this, we are going to get some beneficial rainfall, about 1 to 2 inches of rain for much of the deep south, which we could really use the rain. So that's going to be good news. So that's most of what I have for today. So just to kind of recap of the main ideas that were talked about. So the severe weather threat for Monday is basically an all hazards threat with damaging winds, the possibility, large hail, and the potential for tornadoes, mainly across northern and central Louisiana and southern Mississippi, where that enhanced risk is outlooked. And so that's going to do it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next video.